R.V. Coons and Associations
from the opportunity of America. We have a duty to confront this poverty with bold action. So let us restore all that we have cherished from yesterday, and let us rise above the legacy of inequality. When the streets are rebuilt, there should be many new businesses, including minority-owned businesses along those streets.
Well, the president's claim that racism causes poverty was a jarring departure from conservative doctrine. Republican presidents typically don't believe things like that, much less say them out loud. But did anyone even notice what he said? Will the president's new position buy him any goodwill from black voters? To answer these questions and many others, we welcome Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who represents the 18th District of Houston, Texas, which is now home to some 125,000 Katrina evacuees. Congresswoman, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Here's what I don't understand. The president comes out, supports affirmative action, as he has for a number of years now, and comes out and says, look, racism causes poverty. People are poor because they're discriminated against. This is a central tenet of American liberalism. Why does he get so little black support?
Well, the president had to speak last night to the obvious, Tucker, and might I say that his passion, his compassion was appreciated and, I believe, welcomed, albeit that this is not a time to take polling numbers or to worry about how many votes he will get. But I think the question for many in the African-American community is that we know that there are a lot of words to be said. The Good Samaritan is a story in words. I think everyone is looking now for the deeds, and that's really the crux of the problem. We already have in the backdrop of the tragedy of Hurricane Katrina these visuals of seeing so many African Americans left stranded and in desperate conditions. But might I say, as a member of the Homeland Security Committee, as someone who spent her afternoon visiting shelters and will continue to do so in the Houston area, I know that this is a multiple problem among many, many different groups. But the president has symbolically, as a backdrop to the failure of Hurricane Katrina, the thousands upon thousands of visual faces that happen to be African American. Now we're looking for the announcements he made last night, the amount of dollars, the investment in housing, health care, to be an actual deeds. That means he has to use the bully pulpit and get the United States Congress to work together.
Well, you know that, I mean, $62 billion's already been appropriated. We're going to go far above $100 billion. We can say it for certain, I think, probably closer to $200 billion. But the point is, not only is the president disliked in the black community, I think that's fair to say. He got 10% of the black vote in 2004, but he's actually the subject of these pretty wild conspiracy theories. Louis Farrakhan saying the other day that he thinks the levees were blown up by the federal government, presumably as part of an effort to kill black people in New Orleans, et cetera, et cetera. People saying that Bush hates black people. The wildest kind of claims about Bush and being a racist. Why do these continue in the face of the president standing up and saying that he supports affirmative action and that he wants to help black people specifically? There's a huge disconnect, and I just don't get it.
Well, Tucker, this obviously speaks to the disconnect that has continued from the 2000 election on to this date. I do go back to the point that deeds will speak louder than words. You can't deny people the First Amendment rights in their position, but let me tell you how we can begin a pathway of healing. First of all, as you well know, numbers of organizations, including the Congressional Black Caucus and the Urban League and the NAACP, the National Medical Association, a number of others, have joined together capturing, if you will, or taking the high road of recovery on Hurricane Katrina. We want to meet, and we will be seeking a meeting with the President of the United States so that the roadmap that he has now laid before the American people can be one laid out by people who are hearing and listening to those who have been harmed, amongst others. Frankly, as he speaks about affirmative action, legislation in the United States Congress under the emergency supplemental and other bills that this Congress has passed has waived affirmative action on some of the billions of dollars that will be spent, and also questioned whether minority contractors, as he said last night, would even get the opportunity to do work. So the president should join with us.
Slow down. What do you mean? Nobody is preventing anybody from getting work. It's merely a question of whether certain jobs should be set aside based on the color of the contractor's skin. Everybody in this country, as you know, and let's not mislead our viewers, is free to compete for federal contracts, period. That's the law.
I would respectfully and vigorously disagree with you. I'm in the government. I understand the bars that small businesses and minority businesses and women-owned businesses have to jump. the hurdles they have to overcome in order to secure. Oh, absolutely.
I am sorry. That is
absolutely.
That is simply not true.
I disagree with you. It would be important for the President, Tucker, to carry the message of last night into the details of tomorrow.
Congressman, I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but anybody who's ever competed for a federal contract knows that minority-owned businesses have a distinct advantage written in law. You know that that's true. So let's just admit it.
In the ordinary course of business, I'm not going to deny that. We have effectively, as Democrats and Republicans, placed an opportunity for minority businesses, women-owned businesses. But what I'm saying is that in legislation recently passed, because it was declared an emergency, some of those provisions have been waived. The President last night made it very clear that he believes that minority-owned business should be engaged. That means that he must use the bully pulpit and regulations that he will espouse to get Congress to make sure that those dollars are expended in that way, and his executive. But what I would say clearly is, join us, Mr. President, in the African-American leadership, which, by the way, does not just speak for African-Americans. We are patently concerned about the poor, as he mentioned, and we think this is an excellent opportunity to bring people together of all races, eradicating poverty, and laying out a roadmap for the Hurricane Katrina victims, where they are invested in themselves, and they will be stakeholders, and they will help to rebuild Mississippi, Alabama, and, of course, Louisiana. I hope that will be the case.
I also hope, Congresswoman, that you will spread the word that the President is now the standard bearer of a left-wing agenda, and maybe get some support from that community. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Well, we hope so. We're looking forward to working together.
I bet.
Thank you.
Joining me now to deconstruct the President's reconstruction plan for New Orleans, from MSNBC's Connected Coast to Coast, Monica Crowley joins us. Monica, thanks a lot for coming on.
Tucker, you bet.
So last night, the President gives this now famous speech in which he makes these very sort of liberal claims. Today, at the National Prayer Breakfast, earlier today, he promised to end inequality and improve the American character. So these are now the aims of government. Wouldn't it be just better to just give people bottled water and a place to sleep? No, we have to improve the American character. He is acting like a liberal. Explain this to me.
You know, when I was listening to that speech, I had the same reaction last night, Tucker, which is, my goodness, it seemed like such a jarring thing when President Clinton said famously, the era of big government is over. Coming from a liberal Democrat, it sounded crazy. To hear a conservative Republican, a fiscal conservative like President Bush, who at least on paper has been a fiscal conservative, say, well, now I'm going to launch this massive new spending program to reconstruct the Gulf Coast, and then he veered off into war on poverty, racism, all of these bigger, broader themes than just the particulars of dealing with getting the victims the help that they need in the Gulf Coast, seemed to me to be blowing the original theme of helping these victims into something much broader, which I don't think that the President necessarily understands all of the ramifications.
Really? Why does this sound so familiar to me? You go into a country because you want to mitigate the threat it poses to you militarily. Once you're there, you decide, well, wait a second, why don't we go ahead and create utopia here in the Middle East, Iraq? It's exactly the same, isn't it? These kind of grandiose plans.
A lot of politicians don't understand that there are unintended consequences to their words and also to their actions. Last night, I saw this sort of strange brew of echoes of Lyndon Johnson when he was talking about racism and really resurrecting this idea of a war on poverty, and then echoes of Ronald Reagan, where he's talking about creating a Gulf Opportunity Zone, which was a Jack Kemp idea, and offering tax incentives to bring the businesses back. So it was sort of this odd mixture. But one thing I didn't hear last night that I really was desperate to hear is there was no challenge by the President to the Congress to cut spending, or at least to rein in the growth of spending for all of their pet projects. Republican Congressman Tom DeLay last week saying, well, there's not really a lot of pork we can cut. Excuse me, there is a ton of pork. Now, the President did correct that today when he said, look, we're going to have to cut spending in order to pay for, A, the war on terror, and also B, for this reconstruction
You know where people want to cut it? New poll out today, I believe it's an NBC poll, 45% of people polled said they think that money ought to come from our effort in Iraq. This is a view I think that's going to become more popular. This reconstruction of the Gulf will undermine support for the war in Iraq, because people are going to say, well, wait a second, why are we spending all this money to reconstruct Basra and to Crete and Baghdad when, you know, Mobile and New Orleans are
I think you're right. I think he's going to get a lot of pressure both from the right and from the left on the war in Iraq. And he's got a lot of active military units, 82nd Airborne, Marine Expeditionary Force, that have been on the ground in Iraq, now on the ground in the Gulf states.
Oh, yeah, we interviewed some.
Doing a lot of the work down there. And so I think he is going to have pressure. But the President has to do a couple of things. First and foremost, though, he's got to get out there as Commander-in-Chief and say, look, we have faced this national catastrophe. This was a natural natural disaster that was then followed, frankly, by a man-made disaster because of the sheer collapse of leadership at the local, state, and federal levels. We have to deal with that. We also, on the other hand, are fighting this war on terror, and we cannot take our eye off the ball in that regard. The president has to make a very persuasive case to the American people that both need to be done, and frankly, both have to be done.
If there's one person in public life who is not capable of making a persuasive case, it's this president. Even when his case is sound, even when he's saying the correct things, the honest things, he's not good at selling it. He's just a bad salesman. And I fear he won't be able to pull that off. And I think this is...
He has been good at it in the past. When he's got the right message, when he believes in the power of the principles he is talking about, he can be extremely persuasive. That is the power of the bully pulpit. His job is not just to execute policy. His job is also to go out there and sell it. And now he's got a double challenge. First, he had a challenge before Katrina, selling the war in Iraq, reselling the war in Iraq.
Ugh.
Now he's got a huge, massive spending
what a dismal failure that's
and he's got to go out there and talk about both of them.
I wanted to support the war in Iraq initially. I really did. I'm not anti-war. He couldn't convince me why we were doing it. I have no idea. There's no way
here's
he can
the
sell
argument
this.
that he has to make. No,
we're almost out of time, so
he can make it. Okay, he can make it if he says this. Look, none of this stuff is happening overnight, whether it's Katrina or whether it's Iraq. I'm asking the American people for patience. Stay the course with me. He says stay the course, but he's got to set this all in historical perspective. So the American people don't expect instant gratification in either the Gulf Coast or in Iraq.
He ought to listen to you, Monica.
Yeah, he should.
We do. Thanks.
Thanks, Tucker.
Coming up, the feds aren't the only ones under fire in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. At least one Louisiana senator is blaming, brace yourself, the Red Cross for the suffering. We'll talk to him next. Plus, President Bush deals with two enormous expensive crises. So what's more important, the reconstruction on the Gulf Coast or the reconstruction of Iraq? How will they affect one another? The question of our era when we come back.
Right now at Joseph A. Bank, thousands of handcrafted suits and Business Express suit separates, just $199. The entire stock of signature dress bands, regularly $175, now $79. Plus, special savings throughout the store, like every wool silk corduroy jacket and all micro suede blazers, only $149. Only at Joseph A. Bank, now through Sunday.
Resilient fabrics. Insulation that shrugs off the weather. Energy-saving appliances. Durable surroundings. How do you make all of that happen? With the right chemistry. Improving the things we all need is a goal to live by, and it's ours. Dow. Living. Improved daily.
Were Red Cross workers too cowardly to go into New Orleans in the days after Katrina struck? My next guest says so and blasts them for not moving faster when we come back.
Love the fun ways that Mom makes mealtime into something great. Campbell's tomato soup, possibilities. A grilled cheese dunk just hits the spot. The great ideas never stop. Campbell's tomato soup, possibilities. Lots of goldfish, crackers swimming, wholesome goodness you might be missing. Campbell's, good possibilities.
Right now, Oregon kids are becoming better readers thanks to the efforts of the Portland New Car Dealers Association. Through their partnership with Operation Outreach, your local new car dealers help get books to kids who don't have books at home. Teachers are getting supplemental training materials, and Oregon kids are getting a chance to succeed and excel. Feels good to know our kids benefit from the generous support of the Metro Portland New Car Dealers, Operation Outreach, and Comcast Cable, making a difference for Oregon's kids.
America's greatest strength